Hey there, happy holidays and Merry Christmas. Today's bonus episode is a real special one, especially if you have a TV or you have cable and you turn on TBS or TNT, you can't escape it. It's A Christmas Story. And we interviewed Scott Schwartz, who played Flick, you know, the kid that stuck his tongue to the flagpole in the movie. Man, he had such an amazing career. He's from Jersey. He grew up about 15 minutes from me. So we talk about how he got started in acting, working with Richard Pryor and Jackie Gleason in the film The Toy. Some of the other movies you might not know him from or heard about, but he has some great stories about them. His time that he worked with the WWF, and he's just a great guy. So, ladies and gentlemen, happy holidays from everyone here. Here is Scotty Schwartz. So I know we chatted a little bit the other day, but for people that are listening, just like any good movie, there's a great story, great script. So where's your story begin? Where'd you grow up?
New Jersey. I mean, that's where I learned how to walk and learned how to do all those things was New Jersey. I was actually born in Sacramento, California, but I was gone from there by the time I was a year and a half. So I was a Jersey boy.
Is that where your parents grew up, out there?
My dad grew up in Brooklyn. My mom grew up in Valley Stream, Long Island.
Oh, okay. What was Sacramento? They were just out there for work for a little bit?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I worked for the post office and a few other things, and then went back east when he was buying a business.
Oh, okay. So growing up, so you're in the Bridgewater area, right? That's where you went to like elementary school?
Sure. I went to elementary school, Somerville, and then Bridgewater, and middle school, high school, some of it. The other half of it was in New York for a couple of years, but mostly Jersey.
So at what age does Scotty Schwartz, if I can call you Scotty, when do you think, hey, you know what? I want to be on TV. I want to be an actor.
That how do you say it? It didn't really happen like that. It wasn't a voluntary, hey, let's go do this.
Oh, okay.
I got asked to be in the TV commercial when I was past 8 years old, 8.5. And, a guy that we knew was producing a commercial and said, hey, I think you'd be great at this. Give it a shot.
No way.
Yeah, that's how it happened.
And what was it for? What was the ad for?
You chocolate drink.
Oh, okay. Look at that. And then from there, was it just you got hooked or somebody saw you from that and then it just continued to domino?
No, again, we, on the way home, on the flight back from shooting the You commercial in Miami, the guy that got me to go down there said, hey, you know what? You're really good. I've got friends that are casting directors and, would you want to meet somebody and see if they can give you some advice? Okay. And talking to the casting director, and she's like, listen, I think you'd do really well. I've got a couple of agents in mind. Why don't you go meet with them and see who you like. And if you want to keep going, you keep going. And we ended up meeting both the people that she recommended, and we chose one of them, and it's just how it started.
Wow. And then was your first, I'm sure you did you do any like background work, or was the series Nurse in 81, was that your first role?
Oh, no, dude, I started in, I joined SAG in, first commercial was March of 77. I joined SAG towards the end of, middle to the end of 77.
Oh, damn.
So, I mean, I was busy. I was busy. I literally did over 100 TV commercials and then off Broadway and Broadway. And nurses after that.
Wow! So you were doing you were doing theater. You're doing theater. That's amazing.
Yeah, I did Equity Library Theater in 79 or in 1980, and then at the end of 81, I was doing Broadway, and then went on to the other things. It would just kind of just naturally happen. It wasn't like I said, "Oh, I'm going to do this now." That's not how it is. You just go on auditions and you get what you get.
And obviously you're good at it, having that much work at such a young age, you have to be able to handle it. I'm sure there's other kid actors that try to do it and just, it's too big of a moment, but you stepped up to the plate.
I was enjoying myself. I just had a fun time.
That's awesome. So then so we're at 81, you're a nurse. And then how did the toy come about?
For like every other gig, you go in for the audition. Me and God knows how many thousands of other kids, and then it's we'd like to see you again. Okay, and you go back, and you're doing okay. We'd like to see you again. Okay, and then we want to see you again. It was 8 auditions and a screen test, and got the toy. That's how you get it.
So did you screen test with Jackie Gleason or Richard Pryor?
Nope. I ended up screen testing. They flew me out to LA, and I screen tested with a guy named Norman Gibbs. Not a household name by any means, but somebody, when I tell you who he is, you'll know exactly who he is.
Okay.
He is the skinny of the two jive guys from Airplane.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
That's great.
So he was the guy that I screen tested. He was the help. He was, the other actor. And he did great. I did great. The next thing you know, you get a movie, and that's just how it goes.
And just having that movie, because you were a little bit old. You're 12 at this point. So I'm sure you know who Richard Pryor is. I'm sure your parents saw.
Oh, I was 13 when we started the film. I turned 4, while we were shooting, I turned 14. So yeah, I knew who everybody was.
Yeah, that's awesome. So an experience like that, Richard Pryor, who he is, Jackie Gleason, who he is, like two heavyweights of comedy, and you went toe to toe with him. You seem so comfortable, especially now that I know that you did Broadway, still having two people like that you're acting with. You were so confident in that movie, and just some of the lines that you were able to deliver. I watched it again today, and man, that movie brought me back because I watched that a bunch as a kid, and it's just such a fun movie.
They made it fun. They made it enjoyable to go to work every single day. And I was not the typical 13 and 14-year-old. I was already having had enough years behind me in entertainment. I knew how to be around adults. I knew how to act. Or I should say, I know how to behave. Yeah. I know how to act. Sounds wrong. I was an adult. I mean, I got up in the morning, took a shower, got dressed. They picked me up at a certain time. You go and you grab a cup of coffee and a bagel, and the next thing you know, it's time to go to work. That's just what I did. It was a job.
Yeah. No. So one thing I noticed from the movie, and I have to ask you, were you actually driving the car down the hallway and down the stairs with Richard Pryor in it?
Yes and no.
Okay.
The first when we were on the top level, yeah, I was driving the thing. Okay. And then coming the first part of the staircase, while I was driving it, there was a, what do you want to call it? Almost like a spring that was holding me so that the car just wouldn't just take off.
Oh, okay.
And then the last part of it, if you watch the movie, when we first start that last part of the staircase, all of a sudden the car bounces to the right. All of a sudden it just kind of takes a quick right, and then I jerked the wheel back to the left, and I ended up hitting the table, the cart, dead straight center. Don't ask me how it happened, but that's what happened.
God, that movie's so awesome. That must have been such a cool experience. Do you ever go back? You've been in a bunch of things. Do you ever go back and watch it, or it just happens to be on? And it's cool being able to see yourself, and it's like almost having back then a camcorder and go through memories.
I don't watch it all that often anymore.
Yeah.
It's just after you see it so many times, it's just like, okay. But, it's more the memories of each scene and the things that were going on behind the camera, off screen. Those are the things that I remember. If, I watched something, I remember this and that and whatever. But, I've enjoyed it over the years, now it's just kind of like, it's like that vacation that you can watch whenever you want because it's on the television.
Yeah. Any cool like Jackie Gleason stories? Because at that point he was so huge for so many years.
Well, I mean, there's we had there was a 3.5 week period where Richard Pryor had gone into the hospital with exhaustion.
Oh,
and
wow.
so we were shooting the party sequence, where Richard and I drive around in the cars and all of that, which most of it was a stuntman anyway. So he's in the hospital and Gleason and I are there, but there's a lot of downtime. There's just a lot of, different things that were going on in the shooting, with all the extras and everybody else. And he said to me one day, he said, "Kid, you know how to, shoot billiards, shoot pool?" And I was 4'6", I said, "No, Mr. Gleason, I don't, never shot pool." He said, "Oh, come on, I'll teach you how to shoot pool." So he took me in the house and actually, we spent hours over the course of about 2 weeks, teaching me how to shoot pool in the house.
God, that's amazing.
He was a piece of work. He was a fun guy. He didn't like working with kids and animals. They told me that before I got there. But again, being that I wasn't the typical goofy, wacky, stupid kid, when I spoke to him, he knew that I was a movie buff. He knew that I knew who he was. I did impressions of him from either The Honeymooners or Smokey and the Bandit, or whatever, the Hustler I absolutely love. So he saw me do them. He laughed. He thought it was funny, but he knew that I wanted to learn things because I would ask him questions. I would ask him, this, that, we got into conversations about stuff, you would never imagine. Talking to him about George M. Cohan, during vaudeville days, talking about Cagney, talking about being a pool hustler when he was, 9, 10, 11 years old.
Wow.
He was an incredibly gifted man on the screen. While he wasn't the nicest guy to everybody by any stretch of the imagination, he was cool with me, and that made my 4 months of shooting just that much better. It made it great.
I bet. And it's good to know that some movies they'll have cutaways for actors. At least now that Minnesota Fats, when he played him in The Hustler, that was him, and he was a pool hustler when he was pretty young. That's pretty awesome.
If you watch the film, all of those shots that he does in The Hustler are him. There's no cutaway.
Fascinating. That's fascinating.
There is no. Yeah, he's one of the very few people that we know of who actually one-on-one he beat Willie Mosconi, Steve Miserak, and Minnesota Fats in games of pool.
Wow, that's that's so cool. So right after the toy, which has to be an amazing experience, you are in a movie, and everyone knows this movie. It's on every year for 24 hours a day, A Christmas Story.
Well, let me just kind of stop you for a half a second there.
Sure.
I actually got done shooting the toy middle of summer, and then a couple months later, I was off to Tucson, Arizona, to shoot a movie for 20th Century Fox called Kidco.
Oh, okay, cool.
So I actually shot Kidco, and then finished that, and then shot A Christmas Story. Oh God, what was it? 7-8 weeks later, I started working on Christmas Story.
No, let's talk about Kidco, because they have that as the year later it came out. So 83, they have Christmas Story, and then 84, Kidco.
Yeah, for the release date, but the actual shooting.
Oh, yeah, no, I know. They could totally be different. But, so Kidco, that seemed like a pretty cool movie.
Kidco was, they say, well, aren't you, what's the thing you're most proudest of or whatever? Yes, the toy to a certain extent, but that wasn't my movie. That's Gleason and Pryor and Ned Beatty and Wilfred Hyde White, Teresa Ganzel and Richard Donner directing and Ray Stark producing it. Kidco, we had David Niven Jr. and Frank Yablans as producers. Ron Maxwell was our director. But for me, I'm in 98% of the movie. And, it was my movie. And because of time-wise and whatever, I needed to finish the film early because the toy was coming out in the theaters and I wanted to be available for the press junket and doing all that stuff, the radio and TV and all those things.
Yeah.
And I sort of took over. And again, I sound crazy. I'm 14 years old. I've done one movie, and I told the producers that I needed to get done, on a certain date. And they thought I was absolutely out of my mind. They actually almost fired me over it.
Wow.
And, they asked the right question to the right 14-year-old. They said, well, listen, all right, fine. We're going to get started here and you want to get done early. Okay. What do you want to do first? They actually asked me that. That was the right question. And this 14-year-old goes, well, I looked over the shooting schedule and I think there's some things we can move around to cut some days off. And both of their mouths hit the floor.
I'm sure.
And they went, okay. And the first AD came over with the shooting schedule. Everybody else left. It was just me and the first AD. We actually moved stuff around. We were scheduled to shoot until the either 21st or 22nd of December. And I said, I got to be done December 10th. It was a Friday. The toy is opening in the theaters. And we actually wrapped Kidco on December 10th. I mean, I was working overtime. I wasn't screwing around. Again, not the typical kid. It's business. Let's go. Let's get this done.
Yeah, you really wanted to take part of that press junket, and you set a goal, and you're able to help them out too, because that saves them money getting shooting done early, right?
Oh, absolutely. Listen, we worked overtime every day. There were days I worked 14, 16 hours. It didn't matter. I could to tell you, I wasn't tired one day. It was, okay, this is what we're doing today. Let's rock and roll. Let's get it done. And, that's sort of my not ego, but that's what I'm most proud of. Christmas Story was a cakewalk. And Christmas Story was like the vacation in the place that you never want to go on a vacation. When you read the script, Flick has, in the actual script, Flick has like 16 or 17 lines. Yeah. And I was hired for 5 weeks. That's 3 lines of dialogue a week. That's it. That's all that realistically I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even though it came out, it ends up being more than that because of the ad-libbing and just making stuff up, being stuck on the pole and all that nonsense. I worked 1 day a week. I mean, and I'm there and all I'm doing is hanging out. I'm playing in the arcades at the hotel. Can't go anywhere. Much too cold in Canada to go outside and do anything. It was 22 below zero. 24 below zero. It was insane. And where the Higbee's was, where we're looking in the window and all that, that's shot in Cleveland. And Cleveland at that time was really bad. I mean, really bad. Crime was rampant.
Really?
All of the stores in where Higbee's was, right sort of behind it, as a part of it, it was the rail station, the train station. And I tell you, there wasn't 3 stores that were open. Everything was boarded up. I mean, it was a downtime for Cleveland. And so they asked us nicely, when the sun goes down, please don't go outside.
Yeesh.
I mean, that's how bad it was. And we're like, well, what if, my guardian or your chaperone wants to take you out? And they'd go, we really would prefer if you don't go outside.
So Scott, since being at your age then, and you're well beyond your years, did you think this movie would be what it is today? No, that's like asking somebody in advance, what's the lotto numbers? No, I know that. But even to a marginal of it, just the fact that it's on 24 hours a day every year since what year? I don't even know when they started that.
96.
That's only like 13 years after it came out. It was that big of a hit that TNT was like, TNT, TBS, we want it on all the time.
It happened to be fortunate to be a part of a time when Ted Turner was buying the MGM library for TNT and CBS. And they needed a couple of movies at the end of the deal. And his secretary, from the story that I got from, pretty good source at Turner, she was a Christmas Story buff. She loved Christmas Story, and he didn't know what it was. And so she actually brought in her VHS copy of it, and he watched it in the office. And he was, "Oh, this is a very nice movie." Okay. And they added it to the list, and he bought it for a pittance. And he got a hold of it, and they were, "All right, what are we going to do with it?" Well, they had so little into it. She said, "Why don't we try a marathon?" They did it with It's a Wonderful Life. The first year went okay. The second year didn't do as well. They did the same thing with Wizard of Oz. They did it once, it did okay, second time, and then that was that. Well, because they had nothing into it, they said, "Sure, what's the worst thing that happens? We put it out there, we'll break even, we'll make back the money we spent for it, and it'll sit in the archives, and we'll just make money on it, little here and there." Well, they did the marathon, and it did good. Okay, well, we'll do it again. And the second year, instead of the ratings going down, they went up, and they went, "Okay, this is good. We'll do it again." And then it just started to go. It started off, whatever. I don't exactly know what the count was, but year after year, when they were getting 15, 20, 30, 40, eventually over 50 million homes were turning on this thing during the marathon. Now it's a cash cow.
Yeah.
Warner Brothers, who owns Turner, they actually or Turner owns Warner Brothers. Excuse me. Warner Brothers PR said that A Christmas Story is the highest grossing film that they ever. Not the highest grossing. They've made more money from it than any other movie that they own in the history of Warner Brothers, because they only paid like $250,000 for it. That's it.
And how does that work for the cast? How does that work for the cast, like royalty wise?
Nothing. Has nothing to do with us whatsoever. We don't have ownership.
Oh, that's
we don't
how
have.
it works.
There's no ownership. We just get paid. We get paid a residual. When it's on television, and that whole thing is, again, part of Screen Actors Guild and the union and what they did and how they did it back when cable was starting in the early '80s. They said, well, we might want to show a movie more than once a day or something. And this is non-network, so not ABC, NBC, CBS, or Fox for that matter. Anything on cable, if a movie is shown more than once on a calendar day, you only get paid for one show. So when they show the marathon 12 times, it's 6 times one day, 6 times the second day. But we only get paid for one showing, and because it's been on so many times over the years, it's a sliding scale. We basically make 80 cents a day. So we make $1.80 for the marathon. $1.60, excuse me, $1.60 for the marathon.
That's unreal.
That's what it is. And that's not only me. That's just, that's what it is for all the cast.
Do you ever, is there any, I know you're going to, pretty soon you're going to like a autograph signing in PA, but do you ever get together with the cast, or do you guys ever reach out to each other?
Oh, sure. I was just with the Bullies this past weekend. I was with Jeff Arcus and Grover Dill in Kentucky at the first Kentucky Christmas Fest. So we got to hang out, meet some fans, meet and greet, and sign some autographs and all that kind of stuff. And, I saw Peter a couple months ago with Ralphie.
Cool.
On Wednesday, I'm going to see the little brother, Randy. We do see some of them sometimes. Melinda Dillon is basically retired at this point and played the mom.
Yeah.
So I saw her last year. Penny Moore, who was Miss Shield, she's up in Canada, in Toronto. I haven't seen her now in several years. The Elves are in Cleveland. I haven't seen them in a while. We're just kind of bopping all over the place.
That's cool. You have the memories from that movie, and so many people, want to see you because it's on all the time. People love it.
You know what? That's just the general public. They decided that this movie was going to be the one for the holiday. They fully decided it based on the quality of the film, based on how much they love it. This is what the public has decided, and that's okay. It's quite enjoyable to see people's reactions, and see the love that they have for the project that we were all part of. I wasn't the star of it. I'm in I think 7 or 8 minutes of footage in the whole thing. That's it. But, and the bullies are in less than me. But, we were all part of an ensemble piece that people just love.
Yeah, and I think that movie, the best part about it being on all the time, obviously you're not staring at the TV for 24 hours, but, you go out of the room, you have family over, you put it on, and you're always on these different parts. And I always loved the movie because it reminded me of Married with Children, kind of the way Darren McGavin was. And I know that's pre-Married with Children, but just, I don't know, the Bumpus Hounds and just his relationship with his wife. And I don't know, it's such a cool... And it's just I love period pieces, and I think it's so cool that movie. It's great.
It's a relationship film.
Yeah.
I mean, there are reasons why generations of people love this thing. What is the movie about? Is it about Ralphie wants a BB gun? Is it about the leg lamp? Is it about, the gift you hate, the bunny suit? No. It's a boy who wants respect from his father. He wants the acceptance of his father. And so you've got this whole thing where, Ralphie's mom, oh, you'll shoot your eye out. No, you'll shoot your eye out. None of that. But then at the end, you get the payoff. The old man, hey, I had one when I was 8 years old. Come on, you got to give the kid what he wants. Yeah. It's an acceptance, and Darren is wonderful. I didn't really get a chance to spend much of any time with him. I'm not in any scenes with him. But he was, a nice man, but so talented. I mean, what he did in the film is just so great. His stuff that's my favorite stuff, is the stuff that he did. Francese, it must be Italian. The totally non-PC. I love the Chinese restaurant.
Yes.
Yes. Rah, 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 rah. I love that scene. Doesn't make me a bad person. I love that scene.
Oh, no, that's a great scene. And it's such a thing, too. People do that. They go get Chinese food at Christmas. Maybe because of that. Maybe because of Christmas Story. But that's like a thing.
Sure. Yeah, no, it's really a wonderful film. Extremely well cast. Everybody was just, again, easy to work with. The worst thing of the whole movie is the weather. Yeah. What we had to be put through to get this thing done. It's, not what people think. That tongue in the flagpole. Yeah. Okay, great. Whatever. It's 24 below zero in Canada in February,
Where in Canada were you guys at?
We were in a town called St. Catharines, between Toronto and Buffalo.
Oh yeah, me and my wife got married in Niagara Falls. We actually went into St. Catharines. I think that was when we got our marriage certificate around there.
Oh, it was just brutal.
Yeah,
the conditions and people. Oh, it was just one scene. I'm like, no, you don't understand. It's not like movies take 10 minutes to shoot a scene. You got to shoot all the different angles. They got to set everything up. You got to figure out what you're going to do, whatever. We shot it the first time. It took 12 and a half hours. And then they underdeveloped the film, and we had to go back and do it a second time.
Oh, no.
And the second time, it only took us 11 and a half hours. It was just, But that's sort of the thing you just kind of toss to the side, because you enjoyed the overall participation in the film, but those memories don't go away. It's not like they just disappear,
Yeah. And that's cool. You have stories like that, even though obviously you had to do it twice. But so the next movie that pops up when I'm
NFL para todos neste dia de ação de graças, com uma semana de Game Pass por apenas R$ 4,99. Junte-se a nós e assista a todas as partidas, em um dia inteiro de futebol americano com muitos touchdowns e tradições icônicas. Celebre o Dia de Ação de Graças por apenas R$ 4,99. Assine agora em @dazon.com/NFL.
Looking at your IMDb, that really catches my eye. And it was another one that you were the star, Raiders of the Living Dead.
Oh, my God. The infamous, as I call it. Yes. Well,
What was that?
there was a movie producer and director named Sam Sherman. He ran a company called Independent International. And back in the 60s and 70s, everything that he did was for the drive-in market. So, I mean, stuff like Frankenstein versus Dracula, and the naughty stewardesses. I mean, it was drive-in specialty. That's what he did. And when I got into show business, I was at a film club with my dad. That's how I got into show business. And Sam was one of the members of the film club. So I knew Sam since I was 5 years old. So he says, someday I'm going to get a film and you're going to do a movie for me. Sure. Okay. And I'm working for Columbia. And I'm working for 20th Century Fox, and I'm working for MGM. And now I'm working for Independent International. Sounds like the career is going in the right direction, But I did it because it was Sam. And I knew him since I was a kid. So why wouldn't I do this cockamamie movie that he came up with called Raiders of the Living Dead? So the backstory very quickly is he bought 45 minutes of zombie footage. He just bought assorted zombie footage and writes a script around this zombie footage that he had.
Oh, wow.
And I end up shooting Raiders of the Living Dead. But it was cool. Bob Allen, who was a Western star in the 40s and 50s, played my grandfather. And Dita Johansen played the grandmother. And if I remember, she's in The Mummy in 32 with Karloff.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you have an office area or like a man cave, but you need to get that movie poster. I don't know the last time you saw. Oh, you do? That's awesome.
Oh yeah. Oh no, Stan made up posters, and he gave me a whole box of them. I probably have 50 of them or whatever.
Oh, that's cool. No, I like it. You said
actually,
laser.
The girl in the movie who played like my girlfriend or whatever, her name is Corey. I actually found her on Facebook, and we reconnected. She's married. She's got a daughter. It's wonderful. But I said, do you have any Raiders posters? She said, yeah, I think I have 2. I said, I'll give you a few. I gave her like 4 or 6 of them just to get a few extras.
Oh, that's awesome. And it's funny. She was only in like 2 movies ever.
Corey Birch.
Yeah, I'm looking at her right now. She was only in 2 movies.
An absolutely stunning, gorgeous woman.
Oh yeah?
She's a gorgeous woman. And not a kinder, gentler, wonderful soul could you find. She's just a great, and her husband is phenomenal. I mean, I just was in Jersey, I gotta think, when I went 2 months ago. I was there for a friend of mine's wedding, about 15 minutes from where Corey and her husband live. And they're like, well, where are you staying? I said, well, I've got a room at the hotel, the 2 days for the wedding. She said, well, come on a day early and come and stay with us and hang out. And so we hung out and went and had dinner and, whatever. And I stayed at their place. I mean, it was just a wonderful woman.
That's really cool. That's awesome. So the next movie that I saw in here, this movie fascinates me because it's Frank Stallone as a bad guy in Fear.
Great movie.
I got to see this movie.
You'll either find it under Fear, the title's Fear, or Honor Betrayed. They had a working title.
Oh, okay.
And so sometimes you find it on DVD and it's called Fear, and sometimes Honor Betrayed. But Fear you should be able to find. He plays a prisoner. He's on a bus. They're going to the prison, and the bus crashes, and 4 guys end up, off the bus. It's kind of like Tommy Lee Jones, the fugitive.
Oh, okay, cool.
The bus crashes and whatever, and Frank is one of the guys, and I'm just the son of Clifty Young and Kay Lenz, and there's another girl who plays the sister or the daughter of theirs, whatever, and he ends up kidnapping us on our motorhome and all this, and it's a thriller and all that, but fun project.
No, when I saw that, I was like, man, I have to ask Scott about that because that looks pretty wild.
It's not a comedy by any stretch of the imagination.
Oh no, it looks wild.
It's a
The
drama
movie poster,
whatever.
He's like holding. It looks like Kay Lenz, I guess, on the cover, and he has like a shotgun. He's holding a shotgun in the air. Looks pretty.
Oh yeah. Oh no. And there's another guy's named Robert Factor, and he's the other bad guy, but he's not. You can't blame him. He's got PTSD. He was a former soldier. He's kind of lost his brains, and all he wants to do is just shoot everybody.
Kind of sounds like Rainbow.
It's a wacky film, dude. It's a wacky movie.
That's awesome. So then after that, you were in something called TV 101, and then you forayed into a different industry for the 90s.
TV 101, I just did the pilot.
Oh, it was just a pilot? Okay.
I did the pilot. They had 10 kids in the cast, and this is like one of those things. They say, "Oh, it's great." I'm going, not exactly. I shoot the pilot. I'm the only person with credit, with notoriety, anything. There were other people in that cast that went on to do some great things, but at this time, I was the only known name. And I was also getting paid triple what everybody else was getting.
Okay.
I'm getting like 3.5 times scale, and they were all working for scale plus 10. So CBS picked the show up, and the producer called me up. I go to the office. He goes, "Listen, as you know and you've heard, the show's been picked up." And I said, "Yeah, this is going to be great. This and that." They said, "Look, we got 10 kids. We're cutting 3 of them. One of them we're cutting is you. We're saving money on the budget, and we think we're going to be okay with the other 7. Thank you for your participation in the pilot. We really appreciate it, and have a nice day." So I didn't get picked up for the pilot, but at the same time in the cast was Andrew Cassell, who was in Revenge of the Nerds.
Oh, yeah.
And then this wonderful woman named Terry Polo.
Yep, she's great.
Ends up in Meet the Fockers.
Yeah.
And then this other guy. "How you doing? I'm Matt LeBlanc. I'm on Friends. How are you?" So Matt becomes the lead of this, this show that was on for 2 years. Then later on, of course, he ends up as Matt LeBlanc in Friends. And I got to tell you something. Matt LeBlanc is an incredible actor. If you want him to play Matt LeBlanc, he can play Matt LeBlanc better than anybody on planet Earth.
That's great. And then another person on there, Stacey Dash, was on that show too.
And Stacey Dash.
Damn, sure. That's a lot of big people from that.
Yeah. And Stacey was really cool. I mean, she was a cool chick. Incredibly beautiful woman.
Oh yeah.
And she was young. She was a kid, I'm trying to think if there's anybody else. The Robart, Sam Robart, I think was the lead. And of course his father was Jason Robart.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he was in a ton of stuff too.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so it's after that I did another movie with Frank Stallone called The Garbage Man, which never got a US distribution of any kind, not that I know of. I've never seen it.
Oh, I haven't seen that on here. What's that about?
Frank plays a guy who's trying to impress this woman, and he saves a whole bunch of money. He's just a garbage man, but he saves like $100,000, and he blows it all on this blonde bimbo, my character, which was just hilarious. They explain it. That my agent at the time says, "Listen, and my body type, I'm 5'2", and I might weigh 115 at this point. They want me to play a gay bodybuilder." So I'm like, okay. So I go into the audition and we're talking and whatever. And they said, listen, because of your size, we're going to go completely for comedy here. So basically, if you book the movie, we want you to gain like 15 to 20 pounds. We want you to go on an ice cream diet. So I start playing an extremely exaggerated gay guy. So I'm very ultra flamboyant. I mean, I am flamboyant like you cannot believe. And they're like, oh my God, this is hilarious. And they just loved it. So I got out of there and I got in the car and I was maybe 15 minutes away. I was stopping for some lunch and my agent calls me up. She said, I don't know what you did, but you did it right. They called already. You're in the movie. I said, oh, this is great. They said, this is when shooting starts. And this is what she said. She goes, and they said you can start your diet. Of course, she had no idea what they want.
Yeah.
She's like, do you need to get a gym membership? Do we need to get you into a physical training program? I'm like, no, that's not what they want. They want me to eat ice cream every day. She's like, oh, God. So I'm wearing like a one-piece leotard, and it was just hilarious.
What was it like? Is that the second time you're working with him? How is Frank Stallone?
Frank's awesome. Frank is an awesome dude. The first thing we shot, we got along as friends. We stayed in touch. I've gone to events with him and Sly and done stuff with them. And he's a great dude. I see him in concert. People laugh. They make fun of him because, he's just Sylvester Stallone's brother. And I'm like, no, the guy can play 10 instruments. He's had a #1 song in the country, from Staying Alive. Now that, of course, it's in the movie because, just the things that had happened with the Bee Gees not doing all songs, and Sly needed a cheap song. He needed somebody to do his song. And who's you going to ask? Hey, I'll throw a few bucks in my brother's pocket. He's done stuff before. And, of course, he comes up with Far From Over. And he's a #1 guy in the country. Not because of Sly, because of his song. And I still see him in concert. He plays casinos, and he plays different places around the country, and I've gone to see him, and, still a very good friend, and, great dude.
He's been when I looked at his IMDb, he was in a lot more movies than I thought he was. So I got to definitely check out Fear. That's on my list for the weekend.
Fear's cool. I mean, he's in Barfly with Mickey Rourke. He plays the bartender. He's terrific in that.
Yeah.
But he's done God knows how many films, 70, 80, 100 movies, whatever it's been. Not because he's a big star, but because his name is a draw. He does sell, whether it's overseas, be it Europe, Canada, Australia, wherever, they know who he is, and he sells product.
That's awesome. So one thing I wanted to write down for you that I wanted to ask, just see how it was. But so in 2000, I think it was, they did an E! True Hollywood Story. What is something like that like reliving everything? And I never saw that one, so.
Listen, it's one of those things where I didn't ever want to do the child stars gone bad. I didn't want any of that nonsense because I really didn't. I've never been to jail. I'm not on drugs. I'm not an alcoholic. They didn't have that. They sort of had the other things that I had done as their kicker and whatever. And they sort of skewed the thing that way. And that's not what they told me they were going to do. But of course, they're lying bastards and whatever.
Yeah.
But it, the process is enjoyable. The end product, it was all right. The cool thing for me was I got my friends in it. They wanted to talk to people that knew me, like they do in every other feature Hollywood stories back then.
Yeah.
So it was great. They went to Jersey and they talked to my friends that I grew up with. They went to one of my friends' houses and everybody kind of came over and then they all talked to them individually. And my one friend, Andy, who's in it quite a bit, I've known him since 6th grade. He was my right-hand man. He was the heavyweight wrestler on our wrestling team in our high school. And he was basically like the bodyguard. That was my guy. And he was also, a correctional facility officer. So he worked in a jail with juveniles. So, never thinking he would, get on camera, ever do anything or whatever. He ends up in my East Hollywood Story.
Yeah.
And he's working the jail. and it comes on in the jail, and the kids are watching it. And there he is, and they're like, wait a minute. That's Officer Serafino. Wait a minute. And somebody called him to come in, and he thought something was wrong and whatever. And they're like, no. Dude, you're on this show. And he kind of became their hero because he knew the famous guy. He knew the guy in the toy Christmas Story. So it made his job easier. Nobody gave him a hard time.
Look at that. You were able to help him out. So you wrestled in high school?
I did, yes and no. Because of my other job, being an actor, I couldn't go to the practices, and I went out for it my senior year, and I was a 97-pound senior. I was a small guy, and our coach really wanted me to do it. I'm like, listen, there's no way. I'm not going to make all the practices, just impossible. So he made me the wrestling manager. So I just showed up and helped all the guys and stuff like that. I mean, I actually got a letter. I lettered in wrestling because I managed and whatever. But I was one of those guys that I could do anything. I was a 175 bowler. I went out for the bowling team. The guy's like, well, you got to be at practice 3 days a week. I said, it's never going to happen. I got auditioned. And he's like, well, then you can't be on the team. And the kid that was the captain of the team, he's like, you got to be kidding me. He's the second best bowler we have. What do you mean? He goes, can't make the practice, can't be on the team. Make a decision. You want to be the TV guy or you want to be the bowler on the high school team? Well, that's a tough one. Believe it or not, at 5'2", I went out for the basketball team. I'm a heck of a basketball player. And the coach looked at me. He's like, what are you doing here? I said, I come to try out. He goes, why? I'm not going to make the team. I said, why? He said, well, you're 5'2". I said, that don't matter. I can pretty much beat the shit out of anybody that's here. He's my French. And he goes, okay, let's see what you got. He put me on the court with a kid named Eric Murdoch.
Oh,
who was,
yes.
He was, the state champion. He was the best kid in school in the state of New Jersey. That season and the following season, I graduated. He was a junior. I was a senior. And we went to 21. He beat me 21-17. But I scored 17 points off the best player in the country on one-on-one.
Oh, yeah.
And the coach is like, okay, you're going to make this team. You just got to beat all the practice. I said, you know what? I said, thank you. I know I'm not going to be here. I just wanted to know that I could do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, talk to the bowling coach, talk to the wrestling coach.
Exactly. I went out for all this stuff, and I was an athlete. I could do it all. I was the short. That was just my thing, Listen,
so,
if I was 6 foot or better, I'd have been in the NBA. And I don't even say that with any ego. This is now 5 years, 5.5 years ago, almost 6 years ago. February will be 6 years. I was in Denver, and they asked me to do the half-court shot with the mascot. And I said, okay, I can do that. And they brought me up during the fourth quarter to the practice facility, and I did a couple shots from half court. And I'm not a regular shooter because I was short. What I learned how to do is the sky hook. I learned Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's sky hook.
Yeah.
Because I had to shoot over everybody. So actually at a real NBA game in Denver in February of 2014, I hit a half-court hook shot.
That's awesome. Did they know who you were? Is that why they chose you?
Well, of course.
Was it okay, cool.
No, I was just I was a celebrity. So since I hit the shot, I hit the half-court shot, it was so great, man. They gave me a raspberry Snapple and a t-shirt.
I'm sure that must have been on ESPN.
Actually TMZ ran it. ESPN never ran it, but you could actually go to YouTube and look up Rocky, because that was the mascot's name is Rocky. If you look up Rocky Christmas Story, that's pretty much, or you can look up Nuggets Rocky Christmas Story. You'll see the video. There's one that's like a minute long, one that's like 25 seconds, but you'll see me hit the half-court shot. And I did the Larry Bird. When I threw it, I knew it had a shot, and I started going to the right, and I put the hand up in the air, like Bird used to do for his three-pointers.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's so awesome. Yep, I see it on here, dude. That's so awesome.
Yeah, so he does the backwards over the head, and he actually hit it. He hit his. The horn went off, And I only had one shot left. That was it. That was going to be the end of the game. There was 18.7 seconds to go. And he hands me the ball. I dribbled once, threw it up in the air, and quit.
Yeah. Oh, my God. That was awesome. Yeah, I just watched it. That was cool. So, Scott, what are you up to nowadays? Is there any, like, acting role, anything you have going on, like, acting-wise?
Yeah, I'm doing a film in a month. I'm going to back east for a week, and I'm doing 4 or 5 days on a I think it's called a wrestling Christmas movie. That's what the title is, a wrestling Christmas movie. And I'm doing that, and then I've got another film I'm going to be doing in April. I think they're going to shoot in Virginia, if I remember. I think that's where it is.
Is that there's one on here? I know these aren't usually 100% like for pre-production, but the one in here is called The Bend.
No, that's 2 years ago, and
that's not even
that guy
anything.
the guy never finished getting the budget, and we never shot it.
Well, that's cool that you're still doing that. You're still acting because you know what to do.
You don't retire from that business. That's all I'm retired from.
I'm sure. Yeah.
If I'm Gene Hackman and I'm 85 and I'm a multimillionaire, you retire from acting. Otherwise, if you get something, you get something. That's just how it goes. You figure out other things to do to make a living. I rep celebrities for autograph shows and memorabilia signings.
Oh, nice.
I buy and sell sports cards, and memorabilia on eBay. And I found, different things to do to make a living.
That's what you got to do. So Scott, this has been great. One question I have to ask, and I know you started doing this really young, and it's so long ago now, but was there anything else you wanted to do besides acting? Or was that your earliest memory of like career? I know when you're 6 or 7, it's like astronaut, cowboy, police officer.
It wasn't. I wanted to be an athlete of some kind.
Yeah,
I really did. I loved baseball. I was a hell of a shortstop, left field, right field, didn't matter. I was a decent hitter. I could hit the crap out of the ball. So there was baseball, basketball, but it just wasn't my side. It wasn't going to be for me. I got into professional wrestling. I was a baby, a youngster of the 80s. So I was a Hulk Hogan guy and Randy Savage and Roddy Piper. It was something I always wanted to do. And ended up hanging out with those people, being a part of that world for, a year and a half, part of the WWF, even though I was not an employee. I was never paid, anything. I went to the events. I helped out. I worked with the guys. I picked them up from the airport, took them to the hotels, took them to the, all that stuff.
What years were that?
August of 85 until January of 87.
Wow, that's awesome.
So I was a part of that. Now, it's funny because I moved to California in 90, really got out of the wrestling thing. They didn't come out here all that much. Back then, no cell phones. So you couldn't just get a hold of anybody anytime. And I hadn't gone to an event in, it was probably close to 15 or 16 years. And I'm at a convention called Schiller Theater in New Jersey. They run it twice a year in Parsippany, April and October.
Oh, nice. That's not far from me.
And one of the other guys there is named Jerry the King Lawler.
I love him.
And I'm sitting at my table, and this absolutely stunningly beautiful woman comes up. He goes, "Oh, my God, you're here." Now, I have no idea who this woman is. And I said, "Hi, how are you?" "Oh, I'm Lauren." I said, "Oh, it's nice to meet you. I'm Jerry Lawler's girlfriend." I said, "Oh, cool." I knew he was going to be there. I said, I'm a fan. Let's come over. "Oh, you don't understand. Jerry is a Christmas Story fanatic. He has a 46-inch leg lamp in the window in the front of our house that sits there all year long. And December 1st, he turns it on, and January 1st, he turns it off." So I go over, and I'm talking to Jerry, and he's wonderful, and and he had no idea that I was a part of that world at one time. And he goes, well, you have to come to SummerSlam. It's in LA. You've got to come. You got to, make sure we'll see everybody. I'm like, okay. After I'd been to 150 wrestling shows, what's the one place I really want to go is another wrestling show. But I'm like, okay. So I went with him. We had breakfast. We walked in the Staples Center together. I'm in the back. I'm in the catering room. And in walks Jimmy Mouth of the South Park. And I knew him when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah.
And we had met at other shows and stuff. He's like, oh, my God, you're here. This is great, blah, 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 blah. Oh, Hulk's going to love seeing you and all. And I'm like, oh, cool. So Hogan's there. Hogan walks over, gives me a hug. How you been? What's going on, little brother? And one of the guys' name is Tony Chimmel. Now, he was a ring announcer for several years, but before that, he was a ring crew guy. And I worked with him when I was a kid. So he comes up to me, looks at me, and he goes, Scotty? And I looked at him and I go, Tony? Well, then it was hugging and kissing and, oh, my God. He's like, you're not going to believe this. Mark is still here. His name was Mark Yeaton. He was the timekeeper at the Bell for 30 years for them. And I'm like, oh, my God, how is he? He goes, he's in the hallway. Come here, you got to see this. So he goes to the hallway, and I'm standing at the door, and he goes, Mark, you're not going to believe this, man. They will let anybody in here who walks in the door. And he pulls me out into the hallway so Mark can see me. And he's like, oh, my God. And we hugged and kissed and cried. These were my boys,
Yeah.
And I think there was, getting to meet some of the newer guys hanging out. I'm talking to Brock Lesnar, and I'm talking to Kane, and I'm, John Cena and Randy Orton, and, so I had a blast. And then before the end of the night, I ran into, I'm out in the garage area, and I had been talking to Pat Patterson, who I knew.
Oh, nice.
And Stephanie McMahon comes walking toward me, and Hunter's about 6 or 8 feet behind her. And she's walking toward me, and she's got this look on her face like, why do I know you? Why? And she comes up, and she's like, you look really familiar. I said, hi, Stephanie. Scotty Schwartz, blah, blah, blah. Boy, a Christmas story. She goes, oh, my God. My dad knows. My dad used to talk about you. Oh, my God. Oh. And she gave me a hug, and then Hunter walked up, and he's like, why is my wife hugging this man? and she goes, Hunter, this is Scotty. He was in the toy with Richard Pryor. He did Christmas Story. He's like, oh, dude, I love your movies, man. So, being a part of that so many years before and then coming back to it, that's one of those things you can't put a price tag on them. The McMahon family was always been very, very kind and gracious to me and nice. And they particularly have treated me like family. Not everybody at the company does, but they do.
That's so awesome that that he offered that to you, and just the way everything worked out. And then look, that is a really great story.
Well, the end of it, really, 2 years ago, I'm in Memphis with Jerry Lawler. And he goes, okay, come on, we got to go somewhere. And it's probably about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I said, all right, where are we going? Oh, we're going down to Mississippi. I got a gig tonight. I'm looking at him. I'm like, we're in Memphis. You want to go to Mississippi? He goes, yeah, it's like a, hour and 25-minute ride. Let's go. So I go with him to the event. I meet the promoter, who's this guy, Hollywood Jimmy Blaylock. He's been on Conan O'Brien and all kinds of stuff. He's a showman. I mean, that's what he does. Well, I end up in the gig. I end up in the show with Lawler, and they get me in the ring, and I shove a Twinkie in Jimmy Blaylock's face, and then the bad guy, his name is Stan Sierra, he throws me in the corner, he gives me 2 splashes, I fall down, we do this whole spiel. So now you go 8 months later, I go back down, now I'm actually booked at the gig now with Jerry, and to make a long story short, I end up next to him is like his manager for the night, whatever. And I end up in the ring, and there's a whole melee, and Stan hits the turnbuckle, he falls down, and I go up to the top rope to do the Randy Macho Man Savage flying elbow.
Yes.
I'm 50 years old, and it took me 40 years to get in the ring. And it was great. There's the thing that's like the payoff of being a wrestling fan and wanting to do this. You know, I called Lanny Popo, you know, the genius from WWF. I told him, he goes, "Oh, that's going to be great. Randy would have loved this, man. Oh, my God.
That's awesome, man.
You know, have a blast." And I talked to Hogan, and he's like, "Listen, man, if you want to come and train, I'll give you some hanging and banging. We can hang in Tampa," you know. And I'm like, I don't think I got to do all that much, you know. But I had a blast, you know, so.
Man,
you know,
that's awesome.
That's the thing I end up hitting a half-court shot at an NBA game. I end up in a wrestling ring. The only thing I haven't done that I've always wanted to do is be, you know, take BP at an MLB park. You know, I haven't done that yet, but I don't close the chapter. The book's not done yet. You know, we can do that in my life too.
You can do that. Where are you close to out there? Do you go to like any Angel games or Dodgers or?
No, you couldn't pay me to go to Dodger Stadium. No. Forget the fact that it's an old dumpy stadium.
Yeah.
Not a Dodger fan at all. I've known Barry Bonds since 1988, and so I used to go up to PNC or AT&T Park, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And I just never asked him. Just somehow I just never asked him. I was in the clubhouse 100 times and never said, "Hey, I want to date BP. Can you make this happen?" I just never did it for some reason. But no, all the guys that I knew in baseball are all retired now, and you know, and I was friends with a whole bunch of guys, but just never made that happen. Maybe someday somebody will just say, "Hey, you know, blah blah blah." I don't do the celebrity games because, you know, right now they want all the people that are on the network shows and that they're pushing, and if they're not pushing you, you're just one of whomever.
So how do you meet a guy like Barry Bonds?
My dad had a retail store in Westlake Village, and up the street was Royal Christian High School, and his father, Bobby Bonds, was doing a charity autograph signing there.
Oh, okay.
And I went up, met Bobby, talked to him, told him who I was, introduced myself. He goes, "My kid loves you. He's a monster fan." And I went, "Okay." You know, he's like, "As soon as the season starts, they're coming down here. I'll call you. And, you know, you go to a game and meet Barry." I said, "Okay, great. That sounds terrific." You know, and I was a fan anyway. It's like, okay. And, you know, went to the game. My tickets were there. Barry left me the tickets. It was great. Okay, fine. Then I saw him for a moment or two before the game, and then met him after the game and went and had some dinner with him, and we were friends ever since.
That's awesome.
You know, I was just up there last year. I was up in Frisco in January. Or no, December of 18. Yeah, it's almost a year now. And, you know, I called him up. I said, "Hey, are you around?" He goes, "Yeah, what's going on?" I said, "Well, I'm going to be in town for a day and a half. You want to go to lunch?" He said, "Sure." So he picked me up at the hotel. We went to lunch. We had a 3.5 hour DS session, and he dropped me back off for my signing. It was great.
That is so cool. You don't get these. You can't read any of this stuff online. Just the last 10 minutes, you've had like my jaw on the ground.
It's been a wild and wacky ride, man.
And
you know, my life has not been my life has not been, you know, written, scripted. It's just the things that happen. You know, listen, I do Fear with Frank Stallone. Okay, fine. Then they're opening up Planet Hollywood in Vegas in '96. So it's years later, and Frank and I are still in touch, and we see each other, whatever. And he calls me up, and he's like, "Dude, you want to come to Planet Hollywood opening in Vegas?" Okay. You know, do you want to ask me if I want to have a slice of pizza? Absolutely, of course. So I go. There's a hotel room at Caesars for me. You know, I walked in. I said, "How you doing? My name is Scott Schwartz. I, you know, have a reservation." "Oh, yes, Mr. Schwartz. You were at the Stallone party. It's a pleasure to have you here. Blah, blah, whatever." And I end up walking the red carpet, you know, with, you know, Sly's in the front with somebody, and then there's somebody else, and then Frank, and then me, and, you know, everybody. And I'm sitting at the table in the VIP room with Sylvester Stallone. Rocky and Rambo is sitting across from me, you know, having dinner. You know, and sitting next to me was Gina Davis and Rennie Harlan. And the next table over is Schwarzenegger.
That's awesome.
And the table over from that was Whoopi Goldberg and Joe Theismann. And Steven Seagal is there. Jerry Tarkanian is there. Marky Mark is there. Ricky Lake is there. Mark Wahlberg, I should say. And Ricky Lake is there. And Linda Hamilton. It went on. And I'm sitting there and I'm going, what in the hell am I doing here? you know, while I'm in the movies, and you can call it famous and whatever, being a celebrity and all that, I've always just been the same kid from Jersey. I was very lucky, little bit of talent. It's more luck than anything else to be in movies and television. The certain look, the certain type, whatever it is. You know, you can be the greatest actor on planet Earth, but if the person sitting across from you doesn't see it, you don't get a job.
No, yeah.
You know, and never said anything, you know, to anybody. You know, how am I doing? You know, it's just things that you think about yourself going, wow, this is really cool.
That is really cool. The top of the people at that time.
Oh, God. You know, I had met Sly before that. I met him at the Sugar Ray Leonard, Donnie Lalonde fight in Vegas. And I had done a commercial with Sugar Ray. And we stayed friends, and he was a fan. And, you know, Ray Jr. was a fan even as a kid, you know. And I stayed friendly with him. And all his comeback fight that he started, and then he fought, you know, he fought Kevin Howard in the comeback fight. And then it was another guy, and it was Hearns, and then it was Hagler, and then it was Donnie Lalonde. I was there for all the fights in Vegas. And I met Stallone at I might have met him at the Hagler fight. I can't remember. I think it was the Donnie Lalonde. Might have been the Hagler fight. There was a Miller Lite party afterwards, and we ended up there, and there's Frank, and I walked over. It's not like, oh, my God, this is Stallone. I got to run over. No, I was like, hey, there's Frank. So I went over. I'm BSing with Frank, and I mean, I've got a picture of me, him, and Sly from that night. You know, which is just cool. It's like, you know, you're hanging out with the people that you love.
Yeah.
You know, you don't necessarily know everybody, but you love them because you see them on TV or you see them in the movies or whatever it is, and you're a fan. So I was fanboy, but that was okay because I was cool and I was kind of one of them. I'm in the movies and it's okay and it's all good. But everybody is a fan of somebody. You know, I've met many, many celebrities over the years, and even, you know, an A-lister, Mr. Rogers himself, not Mr. Rogers, but Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
I had an extremely short conversation with on the phone because a friend, somebody that works with him, I knew, and he was going to sign a Forrest Gump poster for me. You know, my friend was going to get Tom to sign it for me. And he told Tom who I was and that I had worked with Gleason and the toy, and Gleason's last movie was with Tom Hanks, Nothing in Common. That's the name of the film. They play father and son, and I played father and son with Gleason as well.
Yeah.
So I get a phone call, and my buddy calls me up. He's like, oh, good, Scott. He picked up the phone. Hang on a sec. And I hear, Scott. I go, yes. Tom Hanks. How are you? He goes, you spell your last name Schwartz? I said, yeah, that's perfect. He says, okay, thanks. Click. And he hung up the phone. That was the end of the conversation. 2 days later, my buddy calls me up. Hey, I'm free. Come over. I'll give you your poster. I said, okay. So Tom signed my poster to Scotty Schwartz. You are a legend, Tom Hanks.
Oh, man, that is awesome.
Him and Rita and their son and their kids. Christmas Story fanatic. Go figure.
Well, like you said, it's like 50 million people that watch that movie. So there's a lot of people out there. Stephanie McMahon, Tom Hanks, Rita Wilson. So there's a lot out there, man.
You know, I actually got to meet Rita. She was dining at a little coffee cafe down the street from me, and somebody said, oh, Rita Wilson's sitting at the corner. And I went, seriously? They're like, yeah. I said, okay. And I walked down the street, and she was there by herself, just having a cup of coffee and just finishing up. And I walked over, and I said, hi, Rita. I'm Scotty Schwartz. I was in, you know, Christmas Story. I spoke to your husband, you know. Oh, yeah, Tom told me. Oh, my God, you're so wonderful. Thank you so much. It's Rita Wilson. It's like, oh, my God, this is so cool, you know. And she was very nice and very gracious and gave me a hug goodbye, you know. It was great.
Man.
We're all a fan of somebody. I don't care who you are on planet Earth. You could be the number one actor on the planet or a musician or a sports personality. You watch television. You know, Shaquille O'Neal I've known since his rookie season. You know, so many guys, Anthony Hardaway and David Robinson, they were all fans. You know, Eric Murdoch, he ends up making the end. I have to say that part. Eric Murdoch, who I went to middle school and high school with, ended up in the NBA for 10 or 11 seasons. He was the number one guy at Providence College for, you know, his time there. set records and all kinds of stuff. Gets drafted in the first round of the NBA, and it's great because I told everybody he was playing for Utah, and we're sitting having lunch here in LA at the Ritz-Carlton, and he and I are sitting there, and John Stockton and Karl Malone are sitting a few tables away, each or whatever. And they came over, and Eric's like, "Oh, this is my buddy Scotty. How you doing? Nice to meet you. You seen the toy with Richard Pryor? That's Scotty. Oh my God. Well, this and that." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "If not for me, Eric wouldn't have graduated high school because he cheated off my paper."
Oh God, that's awesome.
And so I mean, they're all fans. I run at the Stockton and them, and throughout the years, even though Eric was long gone and whatever. And one of my friends was having a birthday, and I went over to Stockton, who was not an autograph guy, did not sign many autographs back then. And I said, "John, I have a special favor." He said, "What do you need?" I said, "A really good friend of mine, he's turning 20 or 21. He grew up in Salt Lake City, diehard fan, blah, blah, blah." He goes, "You got his number?" I said, "Yeah, call him on the phone." So I called my friend. John gets on the phone. "Dennis, John Stockton, I just want to wish you a happy 21st birthday. I got a basketball here I'm signing for you for Scott. He's going to give it to you." Those guys, they don't always do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, a lot of the guys that I ran with and hung with, Glenn Robinson, Jim Baker, Wayman Tisdale, God rest his soul. I had a blast in Shaq. I still see once in a while, and it's like, we don't miss a beat. He is just a cool dude.
That is awesome. You need to write a book. Do you have a book written already or no?
It should be out next September. It's done. It just cleared.
Sweet.
It just cleared legal. Now we're doing some photo approvals, and here we go.
All right. Well, that'll definitely be on the list for me to read. And Scott, this has been great, man. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Not a problem at all. It's been fun, man.
Yeah, and I'll keep tabs on you because I'll go to. I can't go to the one that's in December, but I definitely the next time you're in Jersey at one of these shows, I'll definitely go.
Well, come to Chiller Theater at the end of April. I'm there. Even if you don't see me on the guest list that, they advertise so-and-so's going to be signing or whatever, I haven't missed a Chiller Theater in 23 years.
You got it,
so
man.
I go every April, every October.
I'll be there. It'd be nice to meet you, man. This has been great. Thanks so much.
You got it. Have a good one and happy holidays.
All right. So that was Scotty Schwartz. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays from everyone here at The Good, The Bad, and The Sequel, Jamie and myself. And this Friday, we're going to be releasing our review of a Christmas film, Die Hard 2, with Bruce Willis, William Sadler, William Atherton, ton of people. Don't forget to review, rate, share our podcast, follow us on all social media at Sequels Only. Good night.